Here's a quick video for water drainage solution and a little bit of neophyte concrete pouring. If you've never poured concrete before and you want to see an easy way to make custom stuff, this is a good video. I'm not an expert, I'm a newbie too, so if I can do it, anybody can. I poured concrete like once before in my life before I made this thing. I did it in a form. Wasn't real sure about my ability, so I decided to do it in a form so I could find out if I could do it, make the pieces before I tore up the backyard. I pretty much just scraped it down just a little. Put some of the turf that I pulled up from it on the sides, and I planted grass like a week ago, and I've already got it coming in pretty nice. I'll probably paint it with some coating paint, and then probably paint it green so it kind of just blends in. I've got my gutter running down here. It was always dumping right in here. And then we'd get a wet basement, so wet crawl space. So I routed it under the deck there, and then I also, this gutter hasn't got enough capacity, so I put a pluggable, like for when we really get a gully washer, I pull that plug right there and let it run into there, and I put a pump in there, and or just let it drain out the bottom. But I got a pump here. I run a hose into the same place, and then I got a drain down at the end of that goes out another 60 feet. And you don't have to be that elaborate. I'll go over and have a look at another one I made in a second, but here's one of the sections that I poured, just sitting here kind of curing before I deploy it. It's good to cure these about 24 hours. This one is 32 inches long, 16 inches wide, and I kind of bowed it about 2.5 inches deep, just kind of keep it shallow so I could skitter across it with a lawnmower without zinging the blade. And it's 3-4 inches on the sides. Dumb luck, it turns out that 32-inch long lumber by 16-inch wide was about what I had on hand. So that's how it ended up that size, and by dumb luck it ended up that consumes just about exactly a 60-pound bag of cement. And here's another one that's less elaborate, but it's working just fine. I filled in fill dirt on this. I didn't grass seed this. That's preen that you see there, that the yellow dots. And then this one, I got a diamond blade and cut this at the angle so that this thing would head right out the way I want it to, and then I just dumped it out here, and I put one of those store-bought little plastic things at the end just because I happen to have it. But these stupid things fly away when you hit them with the leaf blower in the fall, and then you find them the next spring out in the woods because you forgot about them. So I'm gonna come with some wood chips, wood chip this in. That'll look pretty decent. You just got to make sure it's sloping down, and that. So let's go make one of these. Well, I've got a 60-pound sack of concrete here. I've got a hole cut here about the size, and I got one of these rubber buckets from Tractor Supply. It's pliable, makes it easy to pour the concrete. Just got an old stick to stir it. You want rubber gloves and a mask. This stuff is nasty cancer stuff. I put about 1.5 inches of water in the bottom of there, and I got water on hand if I need it. I got some white lithium grease here for a release agent. This is my form. I made it with a piece of sheet metal that I just sort of bent to this shape. And then I put a box around it. And then I put these sides in it with some old flooring I had laying around. They got a surface on it that's real slick. So you can, it releases real good off of that. And then what I do is I put these clamps on here to keep those in place, at least until this concrete starts to set up a little bit, and then I can pull those so I can smooth it out. The idea is you put your first pour in here and get a layer going across there, and then you put in some rebar. I've got some screen over there I got ready for it. It's a good idea to have that cut first so you're not fumbling with that while you're trying to pour the cement. But I'll get working here. I'll start mixing concrete. All right. So I'm going to put on some of this release agent. Actually, there's a little schmutz on here from last time, so I like to kind of get the big stuff out of the way, because I haven't had any of these not released for me, but it's kind of my nightmare. Have one of them hang up, you can't get it out. So I try to make sure it's reasonably clean, and I just give it this stuff's nice because it's really easy to spread around. I was using the stuff in the tube, but then I had to have a rubber glove on hand to kind of smear it around. It's just really, really messy. But I just kind of get a coat like that on it, and because there's such a favorable angle on this thing, it doesn't hang up at all. Especially before the concrete gets completely set, I pull these sides out, and that gives you like 1/8 of an inch of space on either side of the thing. Now, when I first started this, I put this box together with Craig screws, pocket screws, and I was taking the screws out every time, but the screws were starting to get to the point where they were going to fail. So I got nervous about that and decided that wasn't the best approach. So I screwed it in permanently, and I got these here to use for releasers. Like I said, I got about 1.5 inches of water in here. I'm going to dump a little bit of concrete in here. You want to go slow and do a little bit at a time. But what I noticed, one thing that, being a newbie with concrete like I am, one thing I noticed is you put some in like this, and then, one thing that's really helpful that I forgot to do here is turn on a fan so it blows this away. I guess this isn't too bad right now. This is one of the reasons I like to put the water in first, because it kind of keeps this down. This is bad stuff. So I like to screw this up. And the one thing I was real nervous about is how do I get the right amount? You know, how do I know when it's right? And if you get a shot of that, it just looks like gray chocolate milk right now. It just looks like liquid. The cement's in there, but it's all sitting on the bottom. When the key is when you start to see rocks that can't fall down, like that are on top, if it still looks really wet, you've got a really loose slump, and that's good for getting it to run in everywhere. A little stiffer slump is going to make it dry quicker, and it's going to stick in places like where you put it better. But so you have to just kind of get a feel for that. The key thing, the thing I messed up the most, I don't know if you saw when I did the tour of one of those out there, I had some bad cracks on one of them, and that happened because I tried to pull it out of the form too soon. That's just, that's bad form. So, I'm still, see, I put quite a bit more in there, and it still, this looks like milk, right? Or it looks like a liquid. You can't see anything in there. Just got to make sure you don't have any big lumps if you're making a cake. And that should probably get me to the point where I'm starting to get close here. It's harder to stir. You want to get a nice stout stick so you don't break it. This is actually a hunk of a tree root. Those are pretty tough. And, all right, it still looks like milk, but I can feel it starting to get heavier. So I got that mixed. Now I bring in some more. I'm probably got 40% of that bag out of there now. So just less than half of it. Now it's really starting to get there, but still, you don't see any rocks sitting on top. You still see like a liquid, right? So it's not ready. I just like to get a good stir. Make sure there's no big blobs but hiding in the corner that haven't gotten water in them yet. And there. And a little more of this. Did a smaller dump that time because I kind of getting the feel, it's starting to get close. Now you see that? You can start to see it's starting to get there. Rocks are staying on top. See there? Now you don't want it, you want to get it stirred so it's all wet. You don't want dry cement like that. You want it all wet. But see that? Like magic, it looks like a different substance. There's rocks on top. You can see rocks. That's when you're there. And then I like to have a nice loose slump like this for the first pour, because I want to put that in and then get the rebar screen in there. The rebar screen cement is extremely strong in compression, but it's got no strength in, you know, from torque or it's being pulled on. I can't think of the word. But there, you can see rocks. That's where you want to be. So this is where this tub is nice. Just grab both handles and bring it over here. And kind of get your stick and convince the last of it to come out of the corners here. Sometimes you get, if you get some down there that was caught that was real dry, there's going to be another mix. You got to do a second or third mix, you know. So you don't have to put all of this in here. If some of it isn't right, just leave it in the bucket. There will always be next time. So there's that. Set that aside for a minute and then kind of use this as a spreader. You can also use an old if you want to sacrifice one of those rubber spoonulas from the kitchen, really good for this too. I had one of those here a little while ago and I misplaced it, so I'm just using my stick. It works too. When I was just starting out at this, I was using my hand, and then for the rest of the time you're doing the pour, your hands are all goofed up and it's no good. So this is a little easier this way. I discovered this. So I got a little patch here that's not filled in. I'm trying to kind of work it out so it fills it in, because I want cement everywhere here. So I don't want that screen sitting without any concrete under it. And this is a nice solid, about a perfect slump, I'd say, for this first pour. This is good. And then there. If you have like one batch I didn't have enough in there to even really cover decently. So I just mixed up a little more with the intention that the second half of that pour would go in after the screen. So like I said, I got my screen pre-prepared. Just use some fencing. Another stuff you can use is I got some of this laying around, so this works pretty good too. That size. Oh, I'm sweating. Lost my glasses. You don't want to use that stuff that's too small for the aggregate to fit through the screen though, because you want the screen and the aggregate to get to be real well entwined. So I get my stick, kind of push this down, get it down in the corners nice and good. You want to make sure the cement's going to be at this level, so if this is under, in all places, if this is under the level of this, it's going to be in the concrete. And then at this point you can take these off because they're kind of a nuisance. But that's in there good. So let's pour again. You can pause that. So this is the second batch all mixed up. I didn't make you sit through that again. One of the things I like to do, I think this is going to be the last of this, and I got a little bit left in the bag. I like to keep a bag around to put the excess in, because it's always nice to have that in case, it's always possible you might mess up and get too much water in the last mix. And then if you don't have any cement, you're kind of screwed. So I always like to, especially if it's like the last bag I got around, I like to have, this stuff's only $4 a bag. It's nice to have just a little bit like that sitting around handy. So if you need it, it's there. So this is ready to go. Do the second pour on top of the rebar here. I discovered with a 36-inch fence, I can cut a couple of rows off, and then I can take that couple of rows and find some old wire. In fact, I took the wire that the fence came in and used it to twist it together. So I make these with solid full screens like the one here, and then the last one I made, the one I showed outside, has it's two pieces of the leftovers twisted together with some of that wire I got hanging over on the wall. It was, like I said, it was the stuff that was just holding it together in the store. And then if this doesn't turn out to be enough, you can always just make a little more. My wife found my spoon, so I'll use that now. Push this around. You want to make sure it's all in there good with that metal. You don't want the metal, you don't want any voids. I made this a little drier this time because as that water comes up, as this dries, yeah, I'm going to probably have to mix another one. As this water dries, it's going to come up through. It's going to come up through the mix. So this cement that's on top is a tad bit drier, and I'm already getting some of that water coming up from below. And that kind of equalizes out. But with that lower first pour being a looser slump, it gets down in there, you know. And it gets, make sure you don't have any voids down the bottom. I don't know, this might be enough here if I work it around. I think I'm a little shy here. I don't want to skimp. I'll end up making one more pour out of this. I've got it pretty much all there, but you can see the rebar like right there. I want more concrete than that over it, because I don't want that to end up rusting out. So you see, you can kind of just smooth it around. And the nice thing is you don't have to come back and keep troweling this, because this is upside down. So you make the opposite shape of what you want. So this was a hump in this direction because I want it to look like the, you know, the flume outside. So you don't have to make it perfect on the side because this is going to be the bottom. All right, so I poured a third time and smoothed it out. That's pretty much it. If a neophyte cement person like me can do these, anybody can. That's all there is to it. Just wait 24 hours and then pop the sides out and dump it out. Thanks.